Welcome back to Terminal Talk. So imagine you are walking down a super crowded city street.
Okay, setting the scene.
Yeah, but here's the catch. You are wearing this completely transparent backpack.
A transparent backpack, right.
And that backpack is just stuffed to the brim with, I don't know, tens of thousands of dollars and $100 bills, just visible to everyone.
Yeah, nobody in their right mind would ever do that in the physical world.
Exactly. But the crazy thing is, right now, millions of people are doing exactly that every single day in the digital world.
And cybercriminals have noticed. I mean, they've built this virtually invisible, essentially mathematically perfect machine to just pick those digital pockets.
It's wild. So for this deep dive, we're jumping right into this weird space where, the neon-soaked high adrenaline culture of competitive gaming violently collides with the extremely lucrative world of advanced cybersecurity.
Because the stakes here have completely fundamentally shifted. When we usually discuss cybersecurity architecture, your mind probably jumps to, corporate espionage, right?
Yeah, or like state-sponsored attacks on infrastructure.
Exactly. Massive data breaches targeting credit card processors. We rarely ever visualize a teenager or a young professional just sitting in their bedroom playing a video game.
Right. Doesn't seem like a high-value target.
But the threat landscape always follows the money. Always. And the money has so decisively moved into these virtual ecosystems.
Yeah, anyone who games knows the ridiculous market caps on in-game items right now, specifically on the Steam platform.
It's not just pocket change anymore.
Not at all. We aren't talking about, 20-cent cosmetic sprays or a cheap digital hat for your character.
Right.
We're looking at highly liquid digital assets. Weapon skins, character models, rare stickers that carry multi-thousand-dollar price tags.
There's an entire multi-million-dollar gray market operating around these items 24 hours a day.
Yeah, these aren't just pixels anymore. They are essentially bearer bonds.
Which means the security architecture surrounding these gaming platforms suddenly has to withstand, the exact same pressures as a global banking platform.
The exact same sophisticated, persistent threats.
Yes. But the problem is the user base is absolutely not treating their accounts like bank accounts.
Absolutely not.
And the third-party developers building services around these economies, they are definitely not employing bank-level security.
And that is the core of our deep dive today. For everyone listening, we are going to explore exactly how sophisticated threat actors are bypassing traditional security to drain these high-value accounts.
And they aren't doing it the old-fashioned way. They aren't brute-forcing passwords.
Right, they aren't executing massive server-side hacks against Valve, the company that owns Steam.
No, it's way more elegant than that. They are utilizing this devastatingly quiet multi-stage exploit.
It's actually terrifying when you break it down. It chains together targeted social engineering, deep architectural flaws in OpenID authentication, and this catastrophic error known as token leakage.
Yeah, the token leakage is the real kicker here.
So you are going to learn how a user can log into the genuine, secure Steam website, type in their real password, use their real two-factor authentication, and somehow still silently hand the keys to their entire digital vault to an attacker halfway across the world.
It really is an invisible theft. But, to understand the mechanics of this exploit, we have to start with how the attackers are actually identifying their targets in the first place.
Right, because they don't just attack random level 1 accounts.
Exactly. The fundamental nature of the Steam economy relies entirely on visibility. Valve created this open API and a public marketplace where players can, showcase, buy, sell, and trade these assets.
It's deeply ingrained in the culture. It's the ultimate digital flex,
Oh, absolutely.
If you drop $3,000 on a rare butterfly knife with a specific randomized color pattern, you don't want that hidden in a private folder.
No, you want to show it off.
Yeah, you want it equipped in-game, and you want it visible on your profile so everyone who visits your page sees your status. The whole default setting of the platform actively encourages these public inventories.
And from a sociological standpoint, sure, it makes total sense. But from a cybersecurity perspective, a public inventory is a massive, gaping vulnerability.
Back to the transparent backpack.
Exactly. It completely removes the need for an attacker to guess if a target is lucrative. Think about traditional finance. Your net worth is obscured.
Right, my bank account balance isn't on my social media profile.
Thank goodness. So a criminal hacking a random bank account is really just rolling the dice. They might get a millionaire, or they might get a college student with an overdrawn checking account.
But on Steam.
On Steam, the attackers conduct this industrialized passive reconnaissance before they ever send a single malicious packet.
They are essentially just window shopping.
Yes, they write these automated scripts that interface directly with the public Steam API. And these scripts just relentlessly crawl through user profiles, parsing the JSON data of public inventories, identifying every single item a user owns.
So they just scrape the whole thing in real time.
Yeah, and then they cross-reference those item IDs with real-time market pricing databases.
That is insane. So within, what, a fraction of a second, the script calculates the exact real-world dollar value of your digital backpack.
Less than a second. The efficiency of this targeting, I mean, it really cannot be overstated.
So they aren't just guessing.
Not at all. The attackers build these massive databases of what they call whales users, holding thousands or tens of thousands of dollars in assets.
And they just ignore everyone else.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
They filter out the low-value accounts entirely. They know exactly who you are, what you own, and exactly how much it will fetch on a third-party cash-out site. You basically get placed into a high-priority queue for targeting.
Okay, so the attacker has this giant spreadsheet of targets holding heavy bags. The obvious next hurdle is, well, making contact. If they know who has the money, how do they actually get to them?
That's where it gets tricky.
Because obviously, gamers know these items are valuable. They know scammers exist. The community is incredibly paranoid about being ripped off in basic trades.
Which is why the attackers pivot entirely to the human element. They bypass the technical firewall by manipulating the psychological firewall.
Because they can't just brute force the login.
Right. The platforms themselves, like Steam or Discord, they are structurally robust against simple brute force attacks. You really can't just guess a complex password and somehow bypass hardware-bound two-factor authentication.
So they have to trick the user into opening the door from the inside.
Exactly. They initiate contact via direct messages, and they usually leverage compromised accounts of people who are already on the victim's friends list.
And that right there is the first massive drop in our defensive threshold. I mean, if I get a message from some random level 0 account with no profile picture offering me a free game, I just block it immediately.
Everyone does. It's obvious spam.
Right. But if I get a message from a guy I've played competitive matches with every Tuesday night for the last 3 years, my guard is fundamentally down.
Trust is inherited. The attacker uses that inherited trust to deliver these highly specific, psychologically tuned lures.
They really play mind games.
They do. The source materials highlight 2 prominent examples that really show the sophisticated manipulation at play here.
Let's break those down.
So the first one involves the attacker claiming to be a moderator or a developer for a third-party skin gambling or case opening site.
Okay.
And the pitch is essentially, let me rig the back-end algorithm to ensure you win the jackpot, and we will just split the profits 50-50.
Which is brilliant in a deeply, deeply cynical way.
It really is.
Because they aren't offering you something for free, which is the classic hallmark of a scam that triggers the whole too good to be true alarm in your head.
Exactly. They're inviting you into a conspiracy. They're offering you a partnership in a crime.
It creates this powerful illusion of mutual compromise. I mean, it appeals to greed, obviously, but it establishes this bizarre, false sense of security.
The victim rationalizes the situation. They think, well, this guy needs my account to launder this rigged jackpot, so he actually has a vested interest in not burning me.
Wow.
It relies on that classic con artist axiom that you cannot cheat an honest person. By inviting the victim to participate in rigging a casino site, the victim feels like they are the one pulling the strings.
Completely oblivious to the fact that they are the actual mark.
Entirely oblivious.
And it taps into that lingering belief among gamers that these massive gambling sites are all secretly rigged anyway, right? So someone reaching out to exploit that supposed rigging feels highly plausible.
It plays right into community rumors.
Now, the second lure the sources point out operates on a completely different psychological wavelength.
Yeah, this one abandons greed entirely.
It reads something like, hey, I am an independent skin designer. Please log into this workshop site and vote for my design so it gets accepted into the game. If you do, I'll reward you with a highly coveted, ultra-rare item.
Right, so this leverages reciprocity and community spirit. The whole gaming ecosystem is heavily driven by user-generated content. Gamers naturally want to support independent creators.
Yeah, logging in to click a vote button feels like a microscopic investment of effort.
And receiving a rare item in return feels like a fair exchange for being an early supporter. The attacker builds a scenario where the user genuinely feels like they're doing a good deed for a buddy.
But both of these scenarios require the user to actually click a link in the chat to navigate to this supposed casino or voting site.
Yes.
And the immediate pushback from anyone familiar with a Steam client is about the massive, blaring security warning.
Ah, the warning prompt.
Yeah. I mean, if you click an external link inside Steam chat, the client halts the process entirely. It throws up an unmissable full-screen warning stating, "You are leaving Steam. This is a third-party site not affiliated with Valve." You literally have to click a secondary confirmation button to proceed.
Right, but we have to view that warning through the lens of a user's daily digital habits.
What do you mean?
Well, the modern gaming ecosystem is inherently decentralized. You might use Steam to manage your library and launch the application, sure, but your voice communications are happening on Discord.
That's true.
You are tabbing out to third-party wikis to check weapon statistics. You are navigating to community forums to download custom configuration files or modifications.
So you're constantly leaving the platform anyway.
Constantly. Gamers are habitually moving away from the official client to peripheral services every single day.
Oh, I see. It's chronic alert fatigue.
Exactly. Gamers will click past a dozen blaring red security warnings a day just to download a slightly different crosshairs or to join a community server. It just becomes pure muscle memory.
The familiarity of that decentralized ecosystem just breeds complacency. The warning prompt literally ceases to be a security barrier.
It degrades into a minor user interface friction point. The user just clicks proceed without even reading the text because navigating away from Steam is a fundamental requirement of their hobby at this point.
So they voluntarily hand over access, fully believing the context of the lure, completely unaware of the actual technical architecture waiting for them on the other side of that link.
Exactly. And that brings us to what happens after they click.
Okay, so the user clicks the link, they ignore the warning, they land on the site. Now, the historical assumption of a phishing attack is that you land on a visually janky, poorly translated carbon copy of the Steam login page, right?
Right, the classic fake login form.
A fake site sitting on some strange domain where the attacker hopes you just blindly type your username and password into a form so they can log it in plain text. But our source material makes it incredibly clear that we need to completely abandon that assumption.
Yes, the concept of the carbon copy phishing page is largely obsolete in this specific threat vector.
Why is that?
Because the threat actors are heavily investing in front-end web development now. The malicious sites do not look like Steam because they are not pretending to be Steam.
Wait, they aren't pretending to be Steam.
No, they are pretending to be legitimate, high-end third-party services, like a sleek esports betting platform, a polished community voting hub, or a competitive matchmaking service.
So they look real because aesthetically they basically are real.
They have high-resolution graphics, responsive design. They even have fake live chat feeds showing other quote-unquote users winning items in real time.
That is wild, and right in the center of the page is the standard, widely recognized button, sign in through Steam.
Yeah. It mimics the ubiquitous login with Google or sign in with Apple, single sign-on flows that users interact with daily across the web.
So it feels totally normal.
It feels incredibly normal. It utilizes a protocol loosely based on the OpenID standard, allowing third-party applications to authenticate users via Valve's servers without the third party ever actually seeing the user's password.
Okay, let's slow down here and really examine the exact anatomy of this intermediate endpoint exploit, because this is where the grand illusion is executed.
Let's do it.
I am the target. I click sign in through Steam on this polished fake casino site. What is happening under the hood in that specific millisecond?
So the malicious third-party site initiates an authentication request, but rather than sending you directly to the root Steam login page, it utilizes an intermediate endpoint specifically designed for this OpenID handoff.
Okay.
Crucially, as part of the HTTP request parameters sent to this endpoint, the malicious site includes a specific directive called a return URL.
A return URL.
Yeah.
So the fake site is basically telling Steam, hey, here's a user who wants to authenticate. Once you verify their identity, redirect their browser back to this specific web address.
Correct. The user's browser executes the request, and they are redirected to the official, genuine Steam domain.
Okay, I have to challenge the premise here, because this is the exact moment where the most technically literate users get completely compromised.
Yeah,
right?
this is the turning point, yes.
Because if I click that button and my browser navigates to steamcommunity.com, I mean, I look up at my address bar. I see the legitimate domain name. I see the cryptographic padlock indicating a secure TLS connection.
You check all the boxes.
Yeah, I am genuinely connected to Valve's corporate servers. I type my highly complex password, I pull out my phone, and enter the constantly regenerating two-factor Steam Guard code. I am doing everything perfectly according to every cybersecurity manual ever written.
You are.
So how am I being hacked if my credentials are going straight into the impenetrable fortress of the legitimate company?
Because the trap is invisible. You are looking at the wrong part of the transaction. Your assessment is actually flawless. You are on the real site, entering real credentials over an encrypted connection.
So my password is safe.
Yes. The attacker does not have a keylogger. They do not see your password. They do not intercept your two-factor token. From a purely visual and user experience perspective, the authentication is mathematically secure.
Okay, so where is the flaw?
The vulnerability does not exist in the login form itself. The vulnerability exists in the logic of what happens the millisecond after you successfully authenticate.
The redirect.
Exactly. After you legitimately authorize the session, Steam servers generate an official OpenID response. Think of it as a cryptographic proof of your identity.
Got it.
Steam then looks back at that initial request generated by the malicious site. It reads that return URL parameter we talked about. And because the third-party developer's implementation of this protocol completely lacks stringent validation.
Wait, meaning they don't check if the destination is safe?
Right, like cross-referencing that return URL against a strict whitelist of approved domains.
Yeah.
Because that validation is missing, Steam blindly obeys the instruction.
So Steam just says, authentication successful, sending the user back to the destination requested.
But the attacker built that intermediate endpoint. The attacker controlled the input parameters. Therefore, the attacker controls the exact destination of that final redirect.
Wow. Which brings us to the invisible theft part of this and this catastrophic concept of token leakage. Valve sends my browser back to the third-party service, carrying the proof that I am who I say I am.
And the moment the third-party service receives that official confirmation from Steam, its back-end architecture generates its own internal session token.
Okay, let's demystify that term for a second. They generate an internal token. That's essentially a temporary VIP pass, right?
That's a good way to look at it.
It tells the third-party backend, hey, Steam already vouched for this guy, so whenever his browser makes a request to our ATI, whether it's checking a balance or initiating a trade, just accept this pass instead of asking him to log in again.
That is the exact function of a session token. It is a highly sensitive string of characters that acts as the absolute proxy for your identity within the context of that specific service. If you possess the token, you are the user.
Okay, so it's effectively like being a VIP guest at an exclusive club.
Let's run with that analogy.
So the third-party site is the club.
Yeah.
Steam is the heavily armed bouncer at the front door.
Right.
I go up to the bouncer, I show my real driver's license, which is my Steam credentials and my two-factor code.
Okay.
The bouncer checks a secure list, verifies I am legitimate, and says, you're cleared.
He verifies your identity perfectly.
And then the bouncer writes down a highly classified randomized secret passcode on a piece of paper. That's the session token, right?
Yeah.
And he tells me to give it to the bartender inside so they can put all my drinks on my VIP tab.
That's exactly how it should work. And under a secure architectural paradigm, that handoff is handled internally, usually via securely flagged HTTP-only cookies that the browser naturally protects from outside interference.
But according to the source analysis of this exploit, the third-party service commits a cardinal sin of web development here.
Ooh, a massive sin.
It takes this incredibly sensitive token, this secret VIP passcode, and it appends it directly to the URL during that final redirection phase.
Yes.
It literally transmits it as a plain text query parameter, something like $token equals XYZ123, right in the address bar.
Which is insane. Transmitting session identifiers in the URL is a massive, widely documented security anti-pattern.
Why is it so bad?
Because URLs are inherently leaky by design. They are recorded in local browser histories, they're logged by corporate proxies and internet service providers.
Oh, so it's just sitting there in plain text for anyone logging network traffic to see.
Yes. And critically, they are transmitted in the HTTP referer headers whenever a browser loads an external resource, like an analytics script or an image from that URL.
So to finish the club analogy, instead of the bouncer handing that secret passcode securely to me, the bouncer writes it on a giant neon sign and just accidentally hands it to a known pickpocket who is loitering in the lobby.
Exactly. Because, going back to the OpenID flaw, the attacker dictated the final destination of the redirect.
The attackers structured the entire flow so that the final redirection the one carrying your newly minted VIP passcode in plain text, pointed directly to an arbitrary external server that they own, monitor, and log in real time.
The pickpocket intercepts the neon sign before you even walk in the door.
The efficiency of that is terrifying. I mean, I haven't interacted with the attacker at all beyond clicking the initial link in Discord.
No interaction whatsoever.
The attacker never saw my password. The attacker never saw my SteamGuard code. But because of how the third-party site mishandled the OpenID flow and leaked the token in the URL, the attacker just captured my active session identifier.
And the impact of that capture is total account compromise, at least within the purview of what that third-party service is authorized to do.
Which is usually a lot, right?
A ton. Remember, the premise of these sites, the casinos, the trading hubs, is that you grant them extensive permissions to manage your Steam inventory via the official API.
So the attacker takes that captured token and uses it to query the back-end API directly.
Yes. They bypass the visual login screen entirely.
Completely.
Completely. The backend API receives the token, assumes it is communicating with the legitimate user's browser, and just grants full access.
So what can they actually do once they have that access?
Well, the attacker can view your private profile data, they can scrape your transaction history, and most devastatingly, they can execute actions on behalf of your account.
Like trading.
Yes. They can initiate trades, forcefully moving your valuable skins out of your inventory and into a network of burner shell accounts. They can completely empty the transparent backpack we talked about.
And the stealth of it is the most alarming part. I mean, if someone logs into my account from a new IP address in a different country, Steam usually sends me an email saying, new login detected.
Right, or it prompts for a new two-factor code.
But in this scenario, technically, I logged in. I authenticated the session from my own computer, from my own recognized IP address. I just inadvertently mailed the resulting access key to a server in a different jurisdiction.
Exactly. The system is actually operating exactly as designed. It is just a flawed design being exploited.
But the severity of a stolen token is actually compounded by another critical architectural failure highlighted in our sources, isn't it?
Oh, yes. It takes this from a temporary, perhaps singular theft event and turns it into a permanent, festering backdoor.
Right, because a stolen token is bad, but logically, tokens are supposed to expire. I mean, if I log into my online banking portal and then walk away to make a cup of coffee, 15 minutes later, the bank automatically terminates the session. It forces me to re-authenticate.
And that concept of session expiration is foundational to secure access management. But in the ecosystem of these third-party gaming services, there is an absolute epidemic of what the sources identify as insufficient session expiration.
What does that mean in practice?
It means the back-end systems of these sites are configured to accept the generated token as valid indefinitely.
Indefinitely, meaning there's absolutely no time-to-live limit encoded into the token.
None. The source analysis indicates that even a significant prolonged amount of time after the token is initially captured, the service continues to honor it as a legitimate authentication credential.
So they never expire.
There is a complete absence of an automated expiration mechanism, and often there's no straightforward way for the user to manually revoke it, even if they suspect a breach.
That drastically changes the threat model.
It really does.
Let's play this out. Let's say I fall for this sophisticated voting scam on a Tuesday. The attacker captures my token, but maybe I'm a relatively new player, right? My inventory only has a few low-tier items worth maybe 50 cents in total.
Okay.
So the attacker's automated script scans my profile, decides I'm not a whale, and just ignores me. I think I'm safe. I have no idea I was ever compromised.
Because nothing was stolen.
Exactly. But then, say, 6 months later, I get a massive promotion at work, and I decide to treat myself. I buy a $3,000 AWP sniper rifle skin. Are you telling me the attacker, who has been quietly sitting on this permanent backdoor key for half a year, just slides in and takes it while I'm asleep?
That is precisely the scenario this architecture enables. The attackers are not manually checking accounts. They build sprawling databases of thousands of stolen tokens.
Oh, man.
And they just run automated scripts that iterate through that database, polling the Steam API daily or even hourly. The script simply asks, does token number 4502 have any high-value assets today?
And if the answer is no, it just moves to the next one.
Exactly. But the very moment you deposit a valuable item into your inventory, the script triggers an automated trade sequence, and the item is transferred out before you even have a chance to launch the game.
It is a devastating combination of vulnerabilities. I mean, you have the absolute lack of validation on the return URL parameter, which allows the attacker to steer the traffic flow.
Yep.
You have the, frankly, amateur's decision to transmit a sensitive session identifier via the URL in plain text. You have the system relying on that single leaked token as the sole method of authentication without binding it to the user's original IP address or browser fingerprint.
Also true.
And you top it all off with 0 session expiration limits.
Yeah.
This is a literal masterclass in how to build a perfect storm of architectural failure, all while the end user believes they are securely utilizing the official platform.
It weaponizes the user's inherent trust in the platform's security mechanisms against them. The user relies on the padlock in the browser. The attacker exploits the invisible handoffs occurring behind that padlock.
So, recognizing how silently and effectively these accounts are compromised, we have to pivot to the strategic defense here. We can't just outline a machine designed to perfectly empty your digital pockets without exploring exactly how to jam the gears of that machine.
Exactly. We need actionable steps.
The source material provides several precise, actionable security layers to protect your account.
And a robust defense relies on understanding why these mitigations work, rather than just treating them as a rote checklist. The most effective layer of defense directly addresses the reconnaissance phase we discussed at the very beginning.
Right, the transparent backpack. The most obvious solution is to take the backpack off. The sources explicitly state, alter your Steam privacy settings to hide your inventory, or at least restrict its visibility strictly to known friends.
It sounds overly simplistic, but it is the single most effective mitigation against targeted attacks. Really, just hiding it.
Yes. By making your inventory private, you completely blind the automated reconnaissance scripts. When the attacker script queries your Steam ID, the API simply returns a null value for the inventory. It cannot calculate your net worth.
You cease to be a whale. You remove the bullseye from your own back.
Precisely. The attacker is operating at a massive scale. They're not going to waste time manually attempting to social engineer a user who might have a completely empty account.
They just move on.
They move on to the next public profile. It doesn't matter how sophisticated their OpenID exploit chain is if they never send you the initial phishing lure because they don't know you possess anything worth stealing.
It is security through obscurity.
Which is usually frowned upon in cryptography, but in the context of target selection, it works flawlessly.
But let's assume you are an active trader, You need your inventory public so people can send you legitimate trade offers. You are just unavoidably in the risk pool.
Yeah, fair enough. The next layer of defense involves the actual interaction with the site. We discussed how attackers are building these incredibly polished, fake front-end sites. The sources recommend utilizing WHOIS services to investigate a domain before you interact with it. How does a user practically apply that?
Well, it requires adopting an investigative mindset. WHOIS is a standardized public protocol and database that stores the registration data of internet domains.
Right, you just look up who owns a website.
You can access it through hundreds of free web interfaces. If someone links you to a massive, supposedly established esports betting platform, and you search that domain in a WHOIS database, you are looking for chronological discrepancies.
Like domain age.
Exactly. Legitimate high-volume trading or gambling platforms have historical footprints. They have been registered for years.
Right.
If the WHOIS record indicates that this sleek, highly populated casino was registered by an anonymous proxy service 48 hours ago in a notoriously lenient legal jurisdiction.
That is a glaring, incontrovertible red flag.
Exactly. It pierces the illusion of the polished front end. A site can fake a high-resolution logo, but it cannot fake the timestamp of its own creation in the global DNS registry.
Now, what about the URL check itself? The sources mention verifying the official steamcommunity.com domain. But earlier, we explicitly highlighted that the user was on the real steamcommunity.com during the attack.
Yes.
So does this check actually provide value against this exploit?
It provides value against the broader spectrum of threats. While the advanced OpenID exploit we detailed leverages the real domain, the vast majority of low-effort, bulk phishing campaigns still rely on typo-squatting.
Oh, where they slightly misspell the domain.
Right. They will use domains like Steam Community with a single M, or Stern Community substituting an R and an N to visually mimic an M. Meticulously checking the URL is a foundational habit that filters out the ambient noise of unsophisticated attacks, allowing you to focus your scrutiny on the more complex threats.
And that scrutiny really needs to be applied to your own behavioral discipline. The sources emphasize ignoring unverified direct messages, especially those promising free items or rigged winnings.
Yes.
We talked about alert fatigue earlier. The only way to counter that is to artificially reintroduce friction into your own habits.
You have to mentally reclassify the Steam leaving site warning. It cannot be treated as a nuisance pop-up. It must be treated as a hard, non-negotiable border checkpoint.
So stop clicking past it automatically.
Once you click Proceed, Valve's protective umbrella closes. If a friend sends you a link to a voting site, you must utilize out-of-band verification.
Meaning you verify the request on a completely separate communication channel.
Correct. If they message you on Steam, you text them on their mobile phone or call them on Discord. You literally ask, hey, did you genuinely just send me a link to vote for a workshop skin?
And what usually happens?
In the vast majority of cases, they will have absolutely no idea what you are talking about, immediately confirming that their account has been compromised and is being used as a distribution node for the exploit.
Trust, but aggressively verify. I like that.
Yeah.
Now, let's look at the technical shields. The sources are adamant about utilizing complex, rotating passwords and activating SteamGuard, which is Valve's proprietary two-factor authentication system.
Both crucial.
But I really want to clarify something based on our earlier technical breakdown. Against the specific OpenID token leakage attack we spent so much time on, does SteamGuard actually save your items?
It is a vital distinction to make. In the precise scenario of token leakage, SteamGuard does not prevent the third-party service from issuing the compromised token.
Right.
Nor does it prevent the attacker from using that token to drain the items managed by that specific service.
Because you already authenticated.
Yes, because you, the legitimate user, actively and successfully satisfied the SteamGuard prompt during the initial genuine login flow.
Yeah.
You authenticated the session.
You opened the door perfectly, allowing the token to slip out the back. So why is SteamGuard still heavily emphasized by the sources if it doesn't stop this specific theft?
Because it acts as internal compartmentalization. It limits the blast radius of the attack. If an attacker captures a third-party session token, they can wreak havoc within the confines of that application's permissions.
Okay.
But they do not possess your actual Steam password, and they do not possess your SteamGuard device. Therefore, they cannot escalate the attack to a total account takeover.
Oh.
They cannot change your recovery email, they cannot alter your password, and they cannot permanently lock you out of your digital identity. SteamGuard ensures that while you might lose the contents of your inventory, you retain ownership of the vault itself.
It's the difference between someone stealing the cash out of your register versus someone stealing the deed to your entire store.
That's a perfect way to phrase it. Implementing these layers, obscuring your inventory, verifying domain history, utilizing out-of-band communication, and enforcing two-factor authentication, it transforms you.
It changes your threat profile.
Yes. It transforms you from a soft, highly visible target into an incredibly hardened, unattractive proposition for an automated script.
It forces the attacker to expend significantly more resources for a significantly lower probability of success, which usually means they just move on to the next person.
Exactly.
So let's synthesize this entire journey. We started by looking at the sheer allure of high-value digital assets. The realization that cosmetic skins have morphed into thousands of dollars of liquid capital, turning gaming platforms into highly lucrative hunting grounds for organized threat actors.
And we examine how those actors utilize passive reconnaissance to identify targets and then deploy highly tuned social engineering preying on greed, reciprocity, and the inherited trust of compromised friend accounts to bypass the user's initial skepticism.
We completely dismantled the myth of the obvious, poorly spelled phishing site, revealing instead a complex technical illusion. We walked through the structural flaws of OpenID implementation, specifically the failure to validate the return URL, which allows an attacker to basically hijack the routing of an authenticated session.
We detailed the mechanics of the invisible theft, too. The catastrophic architectural error of leaking a highly sensitive session token directly into the URL, allowing the attacker to intercept it without ever touching the user's actual credentials.
And we highlighted how the absence of basic session expiration turns that intercepted token into an infinite silent backdoor, allowing automated scripts to relentlessly monitor and drain accounts over periods of months or years. It is a deeply sobering reality check on the state of security in the gaming ecosystem.
It highlights a critical lag in development standards. The technology will inevitably have edge cases, and third-party integrations will always introduce risk. But a user who fundamentally understands how the architecture fails, who understands that the threat isn't a hacker guessing their password, but a system misrouting their authentication token, is exponentially harder to manipulate.
Which leaves us with a much broader and frankly more provocative concept to mull over as we wrap up this deep dive.
As these digital environments increasingly intersect with real-world finance, as the line between a virtual item and a tangible financial asset continues to completely dissolve, the security standards of these platforms absolutely must evolve.
They have to.
But more importantly, the security hygiene of the users themselves must undergo a paradigm shift. You would never hand a stranger the unmonitored keys to your physical safety deposit box just because they promised you a free promotional pen or asked you to vote in a local election. Exactly. The cognitive dissonance of applying rigorous security to a banking app, but completely abandoning it for a gaming app that holds the exact same monetary value, it just has to be resolved.
The virtual sword you wield in-game is no longer just a collection of rendered polygons. In this new digital economy, it is quite literally a bearer bond. It is cash in hand. Treat it with the exact same paranoia and respect it commands in the real world.
Well said.
We want to turn this over to you, the listener. Have you or your friends ever been targeted by one of these sophisticated Steam scams? Have you ever clicked a link and realized what was happening just in time? Share your stories and your close calls in the comments. Thanks for joining us, and stay safe out there.